In the meantime, while I wait for various upcoming TSW add-ons, such as the Southern Class 171, Carlisle to Whitehaven route, and that one German steam locomotive, I thought I'd turn my attention to a German route that I haven't reviewed yet. This is an overview of, and my 2 cents on, the Pfälzische Ludwigsbahn Mannheim to Kaiserslautern route add-on. This route was first released on the 30th of January 2025 during the TSW5 era, and it's still available on Steam for a staggering 57 New Zealand dollars at full price. Its initial release was rough. That, and the fact that it doesn't include any new rolling stock, meant that I held off getting this route for a fair while. I saw that it was 75% off in the 2025 Steam Winter Sale, so I thought, screw it, and the rest is history. The route only cost me $14.24. Like so many TSW routes, more than I care to remember at this point, the Pfälzische Ludwigsbahn is not particularly long, only running for 65 kilometers, or around 40 miles, from Mannheim Hauptbahnhof at the eastern end to Kaiserslautern Hauptbahnhof at the western end. Why the route coverage had to be cut at Kaiserslautern instead of going all the way to Neunkirchen or Saarbrücken is anyone's guess. In any case, the line starts out from Mannheim on a mostly straight and level alignment, but changes character upon reaching Neustadt Weinstraße Hauptbahnhof, after which the route follows a sharply curved alignment through the Pfälzische forest, thus reminding me of Ruhrsieg Nord. However, Mannheim to Kaiserslautern is not the first instance of a TSW route where half of it winds through the mountains and the other half is flat and fast, as we already had similar route concepts in the Schnellfahrstrecke Köln and Semmeringbahn, which were released in August 2020 and April 2024 respectively. In the lead up to this add-on's release, I recall dozens test games going out of their way to remind people that the route is set in the early 2010s, 2013 to be specific. As for why the silly sods from Chatham chose that particular time period, my guess is that they couldn't be bothered, or conveniently had external circumstances preventing them from, modelling the BR429 Stadler Flirt 3, which you would apparently see on the real line these days. One of my biggest issues with this route is the motive power situation, and I say that because DTG didn't bother modelling any new locomotives or multiple units for this route. Instead, they recycled motive power that we already had with previous add-ons. We already had a DB Red variant of the BR111 with Bahnstrecke Salzburg to Rosenheim. The BR185-2 first appeared in Ruhrsieg Nord and has since been reused in so many add-ons that it's not funny. We already had the BR425 with Hauptstrecke Rhein-Ruhr and Bahnstrecke Bremen to Oldenburg, and the BR406 ICE-3M was already available with Schnellfahrstrecke Köln. Pfälzische Ludwigsbahn also includes the ludicrously overused 4th generation low-entry Doppelstockwagen coaches, which have now been used in about 10 routes at this point. If you ask me, I think TSW is long overdue for more variants of double-decker German passenger stock. Thinking back to the BR425, she has received new S-bahn Rhein-Neckar decals, while the physics make the train feel a bit heavier than what I remember from previous variants. But apart from the decals, I can't tell for certain what has changed from the previous Bremen to Oldenburg variant. Speaking of which, here's a lineup of all 3 variants of the BR425 that we've currently got in TSW. As far as I know, this unit will be recycled again as part of the upcoming Rhein-Neosbahn, and knowing Dovetail's tendency to rehash rolling stock, I have a feeling that recycling of the BR425 could happen yet again with other future routes. As for the ICE-3M, and according to a review that I read on Steam, this variant included with Pfälzische Ludwigsbahn is incorrect for the route. Instead of making a proper ETCS-equipped ICE-3MF variant, Dovetail just reused the existing one from Schnellfahrstrecke Köln. Do with that information what you will. Timetable mode features 226 playable services for the BR425, 62 for the ever-boring BR185-2, 9 for the BR406 ICE-3M, and a total of only 4 services for the BR111 and 4th Gen Dostos. What was the point of including the Dostos and BR111 in the routes when there's barely anything you can do with them? Like, it's just 2 passenger trains in each direction throughout the entire 24-hour timetable. That's it. Anyway, if you've got the Taranto Ramp, Niedertalbahn, original DB BR101, LGV Mediterranee, Link Rheinstrecke, Maintalbahn, and Schnellfahrstrecke Kassel to Würzburg, you will see rolling stock from those aforementioned add-ons as extra timetable mode layers on the Pfälzische Ludwigsbahn. Come to think of it, why couldn't Dovetail have extended the route coverage from Mannheim up towards Frankfurt? Anyway, another thing I noticed is that the imitation Edinburgh trams thing, which comes with Rivet Games' ScotRail Express route, is used to represent the trams in Mannheim and Ludwigshafen. However, the in-game tram tracks are modelled to meter gauge, which is correct for the Mannheim system, but the trams themselves are standard gauge. Incidentally, the tram model is actually the wrong type for the Edinburgh service, let alone anything in Germany. Thinking back to the Maintalbahn for a moment, is anyone else getting tired of how often Dovetail set up the BR642 to appear on routes where the Westfrankenbahn decals are out of place? Is it really too much to ask to get more region-specific variants? In saying that, at this point I wouldn't put it past Dovetail if they only added the other BR642 variants in an overpriced gameplay pack. On first impression, I thought this route's performance was fine, at least on my end, averaging around 45 to 70 frames per second most of the time. However, there is still the occasional stuttering, of course, and the frame rate plummets to around 30 FPS in the busier stations or yards at both ends of the route. It's worth mentioning that the ICE-3M takes around 41 minutes to cover the full route, while the BR425 takes around 1 hour and 5 minutes on the s-bahn service. As I was driving along this route, I noticed numerous problems, whose continued presence in the game doesn't really surprise me, since this is Dovetail Games we're talking about. Firstly, there was a glitch at Kaiserslautern, where you fall through the world on the stairs between platforms 2 and 3. This is unacceptable given how much the route costs at full price. Elsewhere at Kaiserslautern Hauptbahnhof, I noticed that the station has working lifts. When I first saw them, I thought they would be the same non-functional lift assets that DTG have used many times on previous German routes. Meanwhile, at Hochspeyer, the first station east of Kaiserslautern, one of the lifts is unusable for whatever reason. Come to think of it, if at least 2 stations on this route could get working lifts in-game, why was the same luxury not afforded to stations like Weidenthal, Lambrecht, and Neustadt Weinstraße Hauptbahnhof? As a certain American commentary YouTuber once said, make it make sense. Looking at real photographs of Kaiserslautern Hauptbahnhof, I noticed that the platform shelters are curved, but for whatever reason, the in-game shelters are straight. Meanwhile, at Neustadt Boebich, the platforms are entirely grey in-game, but real photographs show that they should actually have a reddish tinge closer to the edge. How Dovetail still got a simple detail wrong is anyone's guess. Going back to Kaiserslautern for a moment, there was one instance where I spawned on foot and saw these BR425s on an AI service. Instead of pulling forward to get the whole train on the platform, they just opened their doors right where they stood. As for any other problems that I noticed on the Pfälzische Ludwigsbahn, these were the poorly detailed depiction of Hauptstrasse in Frankenstein, sloppy foliage placements near the wheelchair ramps at multiple stations, not just Frankenstein, this partially floating buffer stop at Neustadt, and no proper foliage across from the main line just west of the station, the one-way invisible wall at Neustadt Boebich, which means you have to use fast travel to get back to the station if you go beyond the wall, as opposed to the dark side of the moon. A laughably bad terrain error next to the Liechtensteiner Kopf tunnel west of Neidenfels, a car that somehow sunk into the ground not far from Weidenthal station, a major lighting error in the Kechra tunnel between Weidenthal and Frankenstein, and lastly, an issue at Neustadt where one of the AI trains had somehow stopped off path, thus causing two other trains to get stuck, one directly behind and the other in the platform waiting to depart for Wissembourg, and I had to delete the problem train to clear the backlog. Was I surprised to have come across this issue? Of course not. This doesn't test games we're talking about. As for any details that I actually like on this route, the only ones that come to mind are the abandoned roundhouse at Neustadt, and I also like how some stations still use an older passenger information display while others use a more modern design. There's a railway museum right next to Neustadt Hauptbahnhof, but none of the heritage rolling stock can be seen in-game. Speaking of this station, I see an opportunity for another non-electrified German route to be modelled in TSW. The route in question is the Pfälzische Maximiliansbahn, which starts at Neustadt and runs for around 57 kilometers or 35 miles down to Wissembourg, which is just across the border in France. And when they get to Wissembourg, German DMUs meet SNCF X76500 units that run a service to Strasbourg. In summary, I would like to see the Neustadt to Wissembourg line in TSW because A. It's another cross-border route, B. The game could certainly do with another diesel-focused German route, and C. The developers would have an opportunity to model a DMU that has never been in TSW before, namely the Deutsche Bahn BR643. At present, the Österreichische Bundesbahnen Class 4024, also known as the Talent 1, is the nearest thing we've got to a BR643 in this game. Come to think of it, there's a problem that doesn't just apply to the Pfälzische Ludwigsbahn, but to Dovetail's German TSW routes in general. I swear that the assets used by DTG make the routes look too similar to each other, to the point where it's harder to tell them apart if you were given screenshots for no prior context for the routes on which they were taken. I guess this is one downside of having so many routes set in the modern day. Personally, I think Link Rheinstrecke is one of the few Dovetail-made German routes that has any hope of standing out from the others, while Train Sim Germany's Niedertalbahn and Mittenwaldbahn, which are set in 1992 and 1989 respectively, have unique assets and colour palettes that make them stand out from the mediocre Dovetail routes. I wish TSW had more German routes that look as good as those from TSG. And now for a compilation of NPC bugs that I spotted during this review's production. In closing, I would not recommend the Pfälzische Ludwigsbahn route add-on to other TSW players, not even if you're able to pick it up on a discount. Mannheim to Kaiserslautern is a route that offers nothing new where its concept is concerned, doesn't include any new motive power, and in one case the incorrect variant, has incorrect details at least 2 stations, the glitched stairs at Kaiserslautern, and various other issues. Possibly the only saving grace on this route is the fact that it offers you the chance to take the BR425 for a much longer run than what's possible on Hauptstrecke Rhein-Ruhr and Bahnstrecke Bremen to Oldenburg. If I could suggest any ways to improve the Pfälzische Ludwigsbahn, they would be to A. extend the route coverage to Neunkirchen or Saarbrücken, B. sort out a proper ICE-3MF variant with ETCS, C. fix issues like the inaccurate platform shelters and falling through the world at Kaiserslautern Hauptbahnhof, not to mention the other scenery/lighting issues that I pointed out in this video. As for where I'd rate the Mannheim to Kaiserslautern route in its current state, I think it only deserves a 4 out of 10. If you've stuck around to the end of the video, you win an old man that recently bought the Blue album and a kitchen appliance. It's the Weezer Freezer Geezer,